were empty because of a curfew. One person is believed to have died and 5 others injured and taken to hospital. Officials say the missiles were used with Soviet style, which caused extensive fires. Well, let's cross live now to our correspondent Joe Inwood, who is in Lviv. And Joe, what more do we know about that particular attack?
Well, it happened at about 10:30 yesterday evening, and it completely destroyed, we understand, the back half of a big shopping centre, as a warehouse with finished goods in as well. Luckily, as you mentioned, it happened about 10:30 at night, so in the evening when the curfew was in place, and that's why we understand there was only 1 person killed and 5 wounded. If it had hit a busy shopping centre in the middle of the day, well, if you've seen the pictures, the smouldering rubble with firemen walking through, it could have been far, far worse, I'm sure.
Joe, bring us up to date about another aspect of what's been going on in Ukraine, because, of course, as the fighting and the attacks continue, the people in many areas of the country continue to suffer. In particular, we've been hearing about food shortages being acute in so many areas in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I think in terms of food shortages, there was quite an interesting kind of set of developments yesterday, not regarding food shortages inside the country, but outside the country. Now, Ukraine is a huge exporter of grains, of wheat, of maize, of corn, and all of that usually is exported via the sea, via Odessa, where we're hearing about those missile strikes. And what we saw yesterday was Charles Michel from the European Council was looking at some of those warehouses, which we understand are full of grains, are full of food produce that is ready to be exported, but can't be because of the Russian sea blockade. Now, Russian ships are stopping anything coming into or out of Odessa. And there's a real concern, I think, and this is something that David Beasley from the World Food Programme has talked about as well. There's a real concern that that food is not going to be able to get out. It may even rot in warehouses. The next year's harvest might not be able to be stored anywhere, because lots and lots of countries, especially in the developing world, in East Africa, somewhere I've worked extensively, they were heavily reliant on grain that comes from Ukraine. And if it isn't coming out, those places are going to suffer real either food shortages, rising prices, or both.
And Joe, finally, bring us up to date about fighting in the east of the country, which I believe is continuing.
Yeah, absolutely. It is in the east of the country. I'm sure your viewers are aware it's in the east of the country, in this area called the Donbass, that the fighting is now concentrated. There's a few kind of points to mention here. The town of Popasna, which had been a front line, over the last couple of days it's become clear that has been taken by the Russians. This is somewhere that had been fought over really since the start of the war. Footage came out yesterday showing Chechen fighters with a large flag shouting Allahu Akbar and celebrating taking the town. But in the north, so there have been Ukrainian counter-offences around the city of Kharkiv. This is a crucial city, and they believe they're pushing the Russian forces back, even attempting to threaten supply lines that would lead into the Donbass. And then, of course, in Mariupol, the place where everyone has been aware of the humanitarian and military situation there, we understand the fighters, the Ukrainian fighters, are still holding out in the Azovstal steelworks, denying Russia total control of this crucial Azov Sea port, but we understand they are coming under heavy bombardment still.